some safety items, some parts of the saw, some chain information, the use of it, maintenance, quick information on chainsaw sharpening, and a little bit about processing a log. And then we're going to turn it over to Bruce, who's going to talk about turning wet wood a little bit and how he dries it quickly. So for the first part, PPE, personal protective equipment, is one of the more important portions of this. The chainsaw does not know the difference between a log and your leg, your hand, your foot, and it always wins. You never win. Some basics on that, head protection with a face shield and earmuffs. You want it, because these things are not quiet unless you're running an electric one. Head protection, most of us aren't cutting down trees, but it's more important when cutting down trees, but it's nice when the whole system's together. You have a face shield, so if you're cutting something and something comes off, the chain, a chunk of wood, it's gonna hit the screen, it's not gonna hit you in the face. It's not a stop all. Having safety glasses or glasses underneath it is a good option, is needed as well. The hearing protection, these saws run at about 105 decibels. So basically it's a rock concert in your right next to your ear. After prolonged use, you will not be able to hear, and your ears will ring from tendinitis. Thank you. Chainsaw chaps. Chainsaw chaps have Kevlar in them or a DuPont filament. When the chain comes in contact with this, it pulls those fibers out. They wrap around the sprocket of the chain and jam the chain up and stops it. You still will get cut. They will go through, but you will most likely still remain, your leg will remain attached to your body. Without them, it's not a pretty sight.
Hey, I've heard that electric chainsaws aren't affected like that.
Electric chainsaws have more torque on them. They will gum them up, but it's definitely not as effective. And even the higher power chainsaws, it will work, but you're gonna sustain more injury with them. Gloves, I had to buy them for this demo because I'm not a fan of gloves when running a saw because it's just me. I'm gonna blame the man sitting in the back because he never told me to wear gloves and made me wear gloves as a kid doing anything. So now I don't like wearing gloves when I'm working. But I'm gonna try with chainsaw gloves. The thing with chainsaw gloves is usually the left hand. And actually, if you look at these, the right hand doesn't have this little square patch on it. Most injuries with chainsaws happen to the left hand. Most people are right-handed, so you're using the throttle. This hand may come off, fall off, the chain jumps back at you, you try to block it, you're gonna put your hand in front of it. So it does have the Kevlar in these. When sharpening or handling chains, and I have worn these, heavy leather gloves stop you from getting cut. See if I can get boots. There's plenty of people online there you watch cut in gym shoes, sandals. I don't know. I don't like flip-flops. I've watched. I don't know how I've watched woodturners process wood online on YouTube, and they're wearing shorts with chaps on. I'm going, that doesn't make sense to me, but it is what it is. But boots, and I have steel toe boots on. They're required for my employment, and I can't seem to do much without them now because you start using them as hammers and stuff. Not what you're supposed to do, but you use them. Pretty much it for safety. Some pre-checks for going out and getting ready. You're going to want to check the function of your safety features. You want to make sure that there's no cracks on your saw, nothing's damaged. It may have gotten thrown in the bed of a truck or in the car or just bounced around. You're gonna wanna make sure it's starting, the saw and chain, guide bar and sprockets. Make sure that those are straight, the rails are clear, no debris build up, the saw is clean, sharp, and then you're gonna wanna make sure it's running and fuel.
What kind of fuel do you prefer? Pre-mix stuff?
It's too, so it depends for fuel, it depends on what I'm gonna do. So I haven't quite used this yet, but I bought it because I'm going to use it. I usually, and when I'm done cutting it, it's because my saw ran out of gas. This is pre-mix, it's 50-to-1, it's what's recommended by the manufacturer. But the premix has no ethanol in it. So it'll store in your saw for 2 years.
And there's also 92 octane.
92 or 9, this one's happens to be 94 octane. That's for overwinter storage. For me, I usually run my saws down and run them out of fuel, and that's when I'm done for the day, because I don't feel like filling up. I usually run, on my saws, I usually run the higher octane with the 50-to-1 mix. I'm using the Still brand of their fuel mix, which is a synthetic. The silver bottle. And if you're using the silver bottle, you don't want to go back between the silver bottle, which is the synthetic, back to the regular orange one. You want to stay with either one of them. So with the fuel, running them down, two cycle with ethanol in it will collect moisture, and the moisture is what causes the fuel to go bad. The lower octanes will go bad in 30 days, 60 days, and the higher octane that you get out of the pump will go for about 90 to 120 before it starts to turn on you. So if I'm doing a lot of cutting, I'll go with a little bit lower the octanes. If it's going to be here or there, which I do a lot of my cutting at work, I go with the higher stuff so that it doesn't go bad if I do leave anything in the motor.
The number one problem when chainsaws come in for repair is to have bad fuel in the carburetor. That is the number one.
The number one reason that chainsaws come in is because of bad fuel in the carburetor.
Yep. And they have to rebuild it.
And rebuild it or replace the carburetor.
So what's the theory of that? Dump it all out?
Get it out of there, or get it out, or running this through it.
Dump it out and then run it out again. That is literally the way to say it. But if you're going to use it, then you're okay. You know?
Where should you dump it out? In your driveway?
You get it back into the can and.
Yeah. Just light a match. It's okay.
In the park.
Yeah, no. Choosing the right saw for the job. If you're cutting a 40-inch log, you're not going to use a little chainsaw. Use something that's larger, the bar's going to fit it. You can put too big of a bar on a chainsaw. You can put too small of a bar, but also use what you can handle with. This is just the start of the professional series saw. It's a 391. After that, they get really powerful. They will grab you. They will take off on you. They can be a monster, but use what you can handle, or have somebody that can cut it for you.
I have heard to use the lightest one that will do the job.
The lightest one that will do the job? Yeah.
How wide is the bar at?
This one I think is 25.
So what's the biggest chainsaw you have?
I have an 881. It's got a 36-inch bar on it. It's a 124cc motor. And the largest bar I have for it is a 56-inch milling bar.
You could actually put that on your bicycle.
Oh, yeah. And it weighs about, it weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 20-something odd pounds or more. It's not a fun saw. That one will take you, and it'll take it out of your hands. So with the saw and some important safety features on that is the saws, with the exception of the little bitty tiny ones, they should all have a working chain brake. And this is the chain brake up in here. That's engaged, that's disengaged, the chain will now move on it. When sawing, your hand should be on the top of the saw, so that if you do experience a kickback and the saw pops up, it hits your wrist and it stops the chain before it hits you in the forehead. Yes. If it's not working, then it needs to get taken out of service and replaced. With the saw, yeah, let's do this. This one's easier to point at and hold. From the point here to here, you'll get kickback. So what that means is as you hit the wood, this pushes back and it'll throw it back, and that is one of the most dangerous. That can happen if this gets pinched, it'll want to throw it back. If you hit the top of the wood, it'll pop back. Kickback is why you want to have both hands on it to stop it from coming back and hitting the chain brake. I can do it, but prefer not to.
Nate, I had one thing to that.
Please.
I'm a little older now, I'm a little smarter, and anytime I move with that chainsaw running, that safety is forward. Because I've stumbled enough times to fall down, I've stumbled over logs, I've tripped on things, so whenever I stop cutting, boom, that thing's going forward. I can move, at least I don't have to throw the saw away, hopefully it doesn't get on me. But very good safety feature to use anytime you're moving.
You'll see what I've done for myself, and thank you, is one of the things I wanted to talk about. No more than a step without the brake being on. So you cut, you need to reposition yourself. You move, you cut again, because if you're processing like firewood, that's okay. But if you're going to move more than one step, the brake automatically goes on. And I've gotten into the habit of you just roll it up. I've actually had it where the back of my wrist has actually been sore from rolling into it so much. Now, the reason I brought this one is because this saw, in my opinion, is actually probably more dangerous than this saw. The reason being is I can do this with one hand, no problem. So the instruction manuals, which I know we all read instruction manuals before you use it, not when it broke and you got to try to figure out how to fix it. The other thing is that because this is a pruning saw, you're more than likely going, oh, I'm going to hold on to this branch while I cut it, or, and this chain is just no different than that chain. You're more likely to not put on all the safety gear to use this because it's so little, but it is important. Another safety thing before we move on. Still in their great wisdom, decided to change their ports for gas and oil. And they went to these little twist plugs instead of the old-fashioned ones where you'd screw them on. And, well, a hot saw and not getting that on, and because this is the way you're going to fuel it up, a hot saw, not getting that on right, and you turn it sideways, you're going to have fuel all over the place. Don't ask me how I know that.
You do that on your neighbor's driveway.
You do that on your neighbor's driveway. Actually, when I was I cleaned this saw, made it a mess again so we could clean it tonight. I filled the oil up before I went out to go cut. I thought it was on, I turned it over, next thing you know, it's all on the ground. So. This saw, the larger saws, when you get them, they have what's called a decomposition, the decomp button, and it decompressurizes the cylinder so that it's easier to pull. It's not as hard. The smaller saws don't, the bigger ones do. It makes it a lot easier. You get it started and go with it.
What kind of chains do you have?
So this one's just a standard chain. So they have, nah, I don't like safety chains. There's yellow, green, skip, hex cut, square cut, round, carbide tipped, which is mainly used on for firefighters. There's a lot of different chains out there. And there's different chains for each saw. We'll talk about that next. So there's yellow. The green is a little bit more, I believe, more aggressive.
Green is safe.
Green is safe. Yellow is aggressive. Those are the two main ones that are sold. Still came out with one that's called the Hex now that has a different grind in it. It's kind of like a hexagon on one side. People say they like them. It's a different type of sharpening. Skip tooth on the bigger saws when you're pulling more, going through more lumber, more log. The skip tooth means that every other tooth, where there would be a tooth every other cutter, they skip one so that you have more room for the material as you're coming across to build up and then clear. Normal chains are cut at a 25 to 30 degree angle. Ripping chain, for if you're going to try to mill lumber, is cut at 10 degrees. I've only used Granberg's chain, which has a half a cutter, 2 half cutters, then a two full cutters, which makes it, they say it helps clean it out and get a nicer cut, and people online seem to agree with it. Picture I have for the saw, or for the tooth. You have the raker, which cleans out the cut. You have the point, chisel, and then the top, and then the gullet down here.
Nate, could you just hold that up there too? You don't have to get that close. That's fine. I got it.
What is the reason for those?
So the reason for those, so the raker sets your depth and sets how much of a cut is going to be taken by the point or the chisel. If you shave those off, that saw becomes very aggressive. Don't do it. People have done it going, oh, we're going to speed things up, and they've been seriously injured from it.
But you do have to adjust them as you sharpen.
As you sharpen them, because the blade, the top plate sits on an angle, as that gets shorter, the raker needs to come down to be able to keep that so that it cuts. If you don't grind or file, thank you, file off the raker, you'll end up not cutting anything. With that, well, that's a good question. Is how often you hit the dirt? How often do you hit a piece of metal in what you're doing? What kind of wood you're cutting? It all depends, and it depends how long of a cut. It's the same thing as if you're cutting with a gouge. The sharper it is, the less energy you're going to have to use to cut it, and you're going to let the tool do the work. If you have to force the saw through it, and you're getting out really fine dust, you need to sharpen it. This is what you normally get out of a nice sharp chain. This is what you get out when you cut the log and it's laying on its side like this. You get the long strips because of the way the fibers are running through it.
Could you pass those
Sorry,
shavings
we will
around?
pass the shavings around. And actually, these shavings that were, oops, sorry. These shavings that are all powder are actually the shavings from cutting this log. But what I did was I cut it as it sits. So I was cutting all end grain, so it was coming out in very things. But it's also the same type of shavings you get when your chain is dull as can be. So the easiest way to sharpen a chain is to pay somebody else to do it.
That's true.
Like 10 bucks.
You know, it depends on how long your chain is. It depends on how expensive they get for sharpening them.
Ace Hardware.
All Ace Hardware or just a particular Ace
Well, there's definitely a really good one in Roselle that you can get. And the guy that sharpens the chainsaws, really good.
Hardware? He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
So,
Like, yeah, maybe.
so there's definitely different ways of sharpening it. This one is modeled after a preferred one. This actually will sharpen and take the raker down at the same time as you go. So it's it's a couple passes through. I love them.
What is that?
It's about a $40 item.
And
How does that work?
I'm gonna demonstrate them. I'm gonna go through and we're gonna talk about, because I have
Well worth it.
the round file with a guide. I like using this one more so on my ripping chains because it gives me the 10-degree angle that I want, which has got a little bitty mark on there. And then up in the middle to help you guide is the 25 or 30-degree mark. But when you do that, we use this one, you have to go back through with this guy, set them on your chain, and then file it off. You also have this one, which I got mad at, and I haven't spent the time trying to figure out. It runs off of a battery. It's a little grinder. You set it on there, you zip in, zip out. You want to make sure you don't heat up the chain because it'll detemper the cutting edge of it. And since we got to be good examples, we're going to put gloves on because I know the chain, even though it's been used, is still pretty sharp.
So you're using your PPE?
Yeah. So since we're just gonna know, you really want to see me in those pants. That's worrying me a little, Mark. So on this, it'll have which side the saw is sitting on, which I don't think it's gonna pick up on the camera. There it goes. So it'll tell you which side the saw you're gonna be on, because you're gonna file each tooth which goes up. There's a tooth on each side of the chain. And you're gonna file away from you.
So if that says 3/8 on there, why does it say 3/8?
Because chains are different sizes and different cutters, and it's to the bar and the sprocket. So there's a 3/8 P, a 0.325, a 3/8, probably what I'm forgetting, and then there's a 404. And that all has to deal with the notes that I didn't bring with me.
Isn't it on the bar?
Yeah, it's on the bar. It'll tell you on the bar what it is.
You haven't wrecked it on the bar yet?
Oh, this one's wrecked.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've gone through and I've taken all my information off my bars and off my saws and put them in my phone so I know what I have, because it's located right here, imprinted. And if you want to see it after you've gotten it worn off, you got to kind of try to see if you can still see the engraving, and it doesn't usually work. But it'll tell you,
Or you go to the store and find the same bar.
If you're lucky, I've done that. The problem is with the 3/8 and or look, actually there's a quarter too. The 3/8 P, if the techs at the store or the salespeople at the store aren't good, they'll sell you a regular 3/8 chain, which doesn't fit in a 3/8 P.
Yeah, you do have to.
Take a picture and take your phone with you to the dealer.
So on the back of this one, it has a bunch of information. It tells you all the different things. There's an 1/8 inch, a 5/32, 3/16, 13/64, 7/32. A whole bunch of different things on it. But on the bottom here, right here, it gives you all the information about the chain. It tells you the length of the bar, which is a 25-inch bar. It tells you how many drive links are. And the drive links, that doesn't have down there. Drive links are right here, the inside. So it tells you how many links are there. It tells you that it's a 3/8, and it tells you this is a 0.05 or 1.3 millimeter. That's when we pull the chain off on this one, I'll show you the bar and the groove that's inside the bar. So you can lock it down so it's not moving. Make sure that this is facing how our saw is. And you have a round file, and then a flat file. And then these bars help sit, and they actually sit on the other teeth around it. You're gonna put it in there. The angle of the handle is the angle that should be parallel to your bar, and it gives you the angle of your tooth cutter. Grab both hands and see if I don't slide this across the table. And if you haven't damaged your tooth that much, that's all that it takes. Then you go to your next one.
Use the other one.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And since this is moving, we're gonna pull this back closer. When you start, take a magic marker and mark the tooth. When I was sharpening this one the last time, I had it marked, but I lost track of where it went. So I just kept going around, and I'm like, this is taking way too long. And the nice thing about this one is that you can see your tooth. You can see the angle, you can see where you're at, and when you're really looking at this, you can see if the tooth is damaged or not. The first time through, it's kind of rough if the chain has been chewed up. All of a sudden, it starts getting easy. It just files nice and easy. Always keep two hands on the file so that you're keeping pressure down. You want to push down and you want to push in so that it's getting that cut. I was watching one guy that was talking about it. Though they were filing their tooth back, they weren't pushing down, so they weren't getting the good gullet in there, and they were just trying to taking the top of the tooth off. It will get this will sharpen your chain as sharp as your gouges, and it doesn't take much to cut you when you're putting. To do the other side, you would just flip this around. Then you actually flip this around as well. Just drag it across, and when you rotate this. Try to keep the amount of times that you go across it the same so that you're creating an equal file. And if we're looking closely, It's not gonna come up. On these teeth, there's a line, and that's the max that you should go for sharpening. It also helps, it's also at the same angle that you need, so there's another reference point.
So now that they can see like these teeth, and then can we have that show parallel so that we can see that
In there,
that we're following, yeah, that's the angle that you're using that tool on.
yep.
Thank you.
And then these bars are riding on the teeth behind it and in front of it, so that you're keeping it at the proper angle and pitch. So, from time to time, so as you're using your saw, the chain is gonna become loose. Right now, this one is nice and tight. There's no play or movement in it. It snaps back on its own. That's where you want your attention set. If it was, got worse wrenches. If the chain was just hanging there, I need to make it loose enough. So chains will become that loose as they get warm, as they start to wear, as they start to stretch. Being that loose will allow the chain to come off, and it'll jump off just like, maybe not. When it's running, because it wants to go to an oval and you're controlling it, it's trying to fall off. So with it being this loose, it will just pop right off. It also won't give you a straight cut through the wood. Cleaning your saw is another important thing, and it adds to some of the safety of it.
How often do you flip the bar?
I flip the bar every time I change it, tighten it or change it out. It depends how much cutting I'm doing. So the bar is upside down. So what was asked was how often do I change the bar, flip the bar? Everybody likes to read things right side up. But if you're always cutting on one side, you're gonna start wearing the bottom of your bar, and you're gonna start messing with the guides on it. So they recommend that you flip the bar every, I don't know what the exact recommendation is, so I'll have it for you by the next meeting. So flipping it allows the wear on the bar. This is the groove that I was talking about. And you want to clean that out and make special tools for it. Screwdrivers work. They will get gummed up. Just a wrench. Screwdriver and a wrench. Comes with the saw. There's different sizes, different configurations. So we can see we get build up in here. This is all oil and sawdust, because we use special oil for the bar. Bar oil is different than motor oil. It sticks to the bar, it sticks to the chain, and it doesn't fall off like motor oil does. Motor oil would. Motor oil will get thinner. This is designed for chainsaws, for the bar, and you want to use it because it gets in here, it coats your sprocket. So this is some of these do have grease fittings. None of the ones that I have that. The bigger the bar, the more oil you want on it, so it contracts through. Some of the larger milling bars, they have an auxiliary oiler on the other side, so you oil the top you oil You oil the top from the saw and you oil the bottom from the auxiliary. So for cleaning, you can go to this camera here. So we can see the oil comes out, and here as the chain passes by, it draws it out. This one is a synthetic, but it's meant for the warmer weather. They make a cooler weather one as well that flows much nicer in winter. Your sprocket, this is your clutch, and around your clutch is your brake. You see it won't spin anymore. Making sure that these areas get cleaned out. Keeps it running cooler and makes a mess everywhere.
That's why you do it outside.
That's why you do it outside. I usually use an air gun, it's a lot quicker. But this was cleaned before I cut half a tank of fuel out of it. So it doesn't take much for it to get gummed up. The more it gets gummed up, the less it's gonna pull through, and you're gonna start gumming up, and it's gonna start slowing the chain down. And from time to time, depending on how much you cut, your sprocket will have to be changed. Clutch could also have to be changed. I would recommend taking it to somebody if you have to play with your high and low for your fuel mixture, unless you're good with engines. I always seem to mess it up, and it doesn't run after I've touched it. So I kind of know my limits on that one. When I have to learn it, I'll learn it. This here is your adjustment for your tank, for your bar. It'll slide your bar in and out, which adjusts the tension on your chain. This is your chain catch. You should keep this on your saw so that if your chain does come off, it stops it from wrapping and continuing going. We've broken them off. This is the chain catch.
Nate, does that saw have an adjustable oil?
This one does not. I believe this is right below the adjustable oil ones.
So how do you know that you need bar oil or regular oil? Is there a gauge on there?
Usually every time you fill a tank of fuel up, you've gone through a bar of oil. You fill your oil up. That's just a good rule of thumb. The hard one is the electric ones because you just change the battery. And usually the batteries don't last as long as the oil will. So there's a sight view on these so that you can see. The bigger saws do have adjustable oilers on them. This one, I didn't read the instruction manual, so I don't know if it has it or doesn't have it. I got too excited about it.
It's usually on the bottom steel. As a screw.
It does. How about that? It's got a little thing, and it's got a little, right here. Look at that, I learned something. Thank you. So, one of the other reasons your chain will not cut is because it was put on backwards.
Funny thing about that.
I think everybody who ever owned a chainsaw
Has done that.
That, and the second you put a chain down and you pick it up again, it does this on you. And I'm gonna spend 10 minutes here trying to figure out.
It's almost like
Yeah, see, now it's like inside out. Here we go. While you wear gloves. This one's gonna be the same way because I just picked it up. There we go. So, get the chain on, make sure it's facing the proper cutting direction. So the bottom, you want the bottom's gonna be pulling towards you. So you wanna make sure that the cutters, I'm gonna go to this one. This one. So the cutters are coming towards the saw on the bottom. Some of the newer saws, they've actually incorporated the nuts into the housing so that you don't lose them. So now that we got this on, we get them snug, but you can see that it's still loose. Go to this camera. Yes.
Yep.
So in here is the adjuster for tightening and loosening the chain. And if we watch the chain, snugs up into it. Now you have to remember that this bar has some movement in it, very little, but it's moving the saw. So there. So when you do this, you want to hold the bar up, check the tension, and then now finish tightening these up.
You put a piece of wood under the nose to keep it elevated.
Check it, and then you would start it, and it'll loop it up. Make sure it spins. And it does. So, for some of the smaller saws, they sell these kits for changing your spark plug, fuel filter, air filter. Keeping those clean. And I brought the pain in the butt one, and so I'm not going to do it. This one, you have to take 4 screws. Yeah, this one you have to take 4 screws off to remove the housing to get to the air filter, so I'm not going to do that tonight. It will collect. Do that after every time you've cut, go through and clean it. So for processing wood, for cutting, for making bowl blanks, you're gonna wanna cut the pith out. So this is why I brought this log, was to show. So if we cut the center out, it takes that part that's gonna crack most likely. Now, I did not seal these. I just let them sit out in my yard today. That's why they're all cracked. But you take that out, and you get half your bowl blank. You can then process this either on your bandsaw to make it round, to make life easier. The bigger saws, cut the corners off. Cut the corners off so that it's somewhat round. Template. I was using chalk to mark where I want to cut so I can follow on the front and the back.
Basic things I can think of that was, I just want to mention that a good friend of mine got killed. Cut the tree limb down, but cutting overhead and cutting off the ladder, it's getting very dangerous.
I did not. I was staying away from falling and cutting trees. I was staying on that processing end of it. That's just because I took a 2-day course on just how to drop a tree. So to cover that, yeah, 2 days. A day of it was pretty much in the classroom, talking about all the stuff that we just covered in a lot more depth. And the second day was talking about your notch, your fall, analyzing the tree for fall, kickback, trying to make sure that you don't have a barber's chair, which is where the back of it splits out, goes up, and comes back. Having the proper, planning the escape route out 45 degrees away from where you're cutting. Working with leans, being able to take a tree and literally spin it and using the tree and wedges, how to buck logs, how to pick all those things up and put them all together. So it's a lot. There's 5-day courses. There's courses that you can, if you have experience, you can go and pay out in Oregon and cut down giant redwoods and the ones trees that are in the fire damage that they need to come down. Spare parts, because nothing ruins your day of cutting when you lose a part in a pile of sawdust. So spare parts. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. When you start the engine, the saw cold, where is the saw? Is it on the ground?
So there's two recommended ways for starting the saw. One of them is on the ground. We'll just look at the table here. So you're standing on this pad and pulling up. That's one of the recommended. The other recommended is you're pinching it between your legs and pulling. No, you don't, not this way. It's this way. And actually, as long as you don't have
Make sure the brakes on.
yeah, you make sure the brake's on. You always, so starting, no, they will start without the brake on. Yep. Starting with the brake on, the brake should always be on. You put it down to choke. For the rule of thumb is that put it to choke, 3 pulls, take it off with choke, 3 pulls. If it still doesn't start because it's a still, then you try it again. If it doesn't start after that, you put it down and you grab your other saw. Because that's usually how it works. And sometimes when they get hot, they don't like to start with the still in their new gas cap. It holds pressure in it. So when the pressure builds up in the fuel tank, they don't like to start either. So you depressurize them and they'll start.
On the steel, if you, on the first pull, you hear a little bit like it's trying to start, flip it up to the next notch. Don't leave it on the choke, and then continue to pull. If you keep pulling, after you hear that first little burp, you'll flip.
That's on any saw.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I just know on that for sure.
steels are so much easier to start than a lot of the other ones.
I run pretty much all steel. I have a couple older McCulloughs and that's what I started using when I was 14, 12. How old I was, Dad, when I cut the tree down in North Lake. I don't know. We had a 40-inch diameter tree that I was allowed to cut down, but I couldn't use the chainsaw on the tree, so I had to cut it down by hand with a handsaw. And and trust me, I used all the safety precautions that they have. Wooden blocks going up the tree. There was no ladders. There was no safety harness, but I'm still here. Once I got on the ground, I got to use the chainsaw. Or the logs became about 12 inches of diameter, and I couldn't get the handsaw through it.
Is there any danger to refueling a warm saw?
There is always a danger of refueling a warm saw.
There's some kind of warning on a gas can, because somehow it can,
There's always the possibility of vapors and spillage.
so is it recommended to refuel a warm saw, or you put it down and take it?
That would be in the instruction booklet that I haven't completely read through. But any lawnmowers, all of them, they say don't fuel when it's hot. I can't say that I've seen it, the lawnmower or anything, and I've fueled saws hot.
The reason I ask is I bought a newer lawnmower a couple years ago, bought a gas can, and there was some kind of elaborate warning on the gas can about how somehow you can start on fire.
If you were to spill it and it gets all over a hot muffler and the muffler's hot enough, it could.
It all depends on what kind of can you've got.
It had something to do with the way the gas travels out of the nozzle.
Oh, the plastic, if plastic gas cans will cause static, you can cause it creates a spark. So I mean, there's always a possibility.
Big cigar.
And
Read and understand.
and obviously there's warnings on it for legal matters. I mean,
How about a ladder? You see how many warnings
Yes, I've seen how many ladders. We have to inspect our ladders and sign off on them every time we use them now. Yes. Which is new for us, so we're getting it
I
hard.
had an interesting experience. I had about 6 trees cut down that last spring. And watching the guy, it's usually a team of 5 or 6 guys will come out. And watching the guys that do they're topping them, and they got the spikes and whatnot, and watching how they operate, and really studying them. It really is interesting to see how they do, because it's all safety, like you mentioned. Watching those guys do it, really interesting.
They go through, I mean, I went through a 2-hour course to be able to drop, or 2-day course to drop it. That's monthly training for them. Doing it through ropes and stuff and trimming. It's, yeah. Well, it's the safety end, but the training of it is constant and constant and constant. It's.
So where do you find these chainsaw safety classes?
I find them through work. If you go online, there's one called Forced Products, Tim Ard. I'll get the link I'll get the information in there. I bought his ebook, and that's what I kind of went through and looked at.
Mark Adams had a weekend course, so they brought some chainsaw expert. I remember seeing it. I know
Sometimes the dealers will have stuff, and if you should look up chainsaw safety, I mean, I wanted to see what other people were saying and what other people were doing, so I watched a few videos just to brush up on it. I know it, and I know what I need to do, but how to present it. So, have any other questions?
Marie's husband had a good conversation. He was working in repairing steel, and he told me his work, 85% of it was ethanol related. And if you're leaving ethanol in there, it's gonna eat the fuel lines and cause load problems at the diaphragm in there. So True Fuel works well. It does have a shelf life of 2 years, but as you get into that second half of the year, it will lose some of its volatility. So you want to use it. It works great for that. It is expensive. You can download an app called Pure Gas, and they will tell you where you can buy ethanol-free gasoline from gas stations. And there are not too many in Cook County. Joliet down there, you can buy racing fuel, but you go to an airport, they're going to give you 100 octane gas, but you really don't need all that octane in there. I go out to on 39, a little bit south of 39, on my way to Peoria, and I will buy pure gas. It's usually 60, 70 cents more a gallon than the ethanol gas. So
And you're buying 1 gallon, right, Bob?
I buy 5 gallons at a shot.
This bottle costs $8. A gallon of it costs 26.
Yeah. So look, download Pure Gas. Another thing is, there's a guy called Bucking Billy Ray on YouTube. He talks a lot about sharpening, and he really gets into the gullet. Filing the gullet on that chainsaw is very important. It doesn't get it sharp, but if it's not, it's scraping the wood out. You want that curl in there, but just enough of it to curl it up and kick it out.
All right, we're gonna do the raffle now, and Bruce is gonna come up. I'm gonna get my stuff off. Bruce is gonna put his stuff on the table, and then we'll finish up with his rest of his presentation real quick.